There's an ancient story of a student who went to the master and said, "I pray, I study, I meditate, do my daily rituals, and I even fast a little. I live in peace with others. Teacher, what more can I do?" The master rose, lifted his hands, and stretched his fingers out towards the heavens, when suddenly they became like 10 lamps of fire, and then he said, "You can become all flame." Welcome, I am Jareth Tempest, mystic, magician, psychonaut, astronaut, hierophant, all-around seeker of truth, author, full-time weirdo, and host of this show where we talk about mysticism, the mystical journey, and all that's magical in the universe, everything from spirits to spirituality, while I take you on a magical mystery tour through the inner worlds, and hopefully inspire you to take that next step so that you can become all flame. Well, thanks for being here again this week. Sorry I've been missing things. Seriously, I've been so exhausted from doing the 72 name attunement. It's really intense, but I'm starting to get more and more used to it, so hopefully we won't have any more problems from that, and I don't think we're going to be doing anything that strong. I don't even know if it's possible to do anything that strong ever again. I think that's about as big as you can get. So yeah, hopefully things will start getting back to normal. I do want to say I'm making one change. I've decided the podcast will start happening on Fridays instead of Wednesdays. Monday and Tuesday are just my busiest days of the week, so it doesn't really make sense to try to cram even more, trying to get the show recorded and edited and everything on the two busiest days of my week. So, moving it to Friday this way, Wednesday's usually still pretty busy, but Thursday's usually a lot calmer and I can get more done. So yeah, that's the plan. We're going to give this a shot, see how it goes, and see if I can hopefully, find the right balance with everything. This week, I want to talk about pathworking. The last time we talked about attunement, so the other big thing that I'm kind of known for is for pathworking. So I figured we'll talk about pathworkings. This probably won't be a very long episode. It's not a really complicated subject, so there's no need to make it, to pad the runtime, I guess. So what is pathworking? Well, I guess we need to talk a little bit about what quote-unquote astral travel is. There's this idea that to do it right, you have to have had a full out-of-body experience, and that's just not really true. If you look at the material on it, we didn't even call it astral travel until the 1800s. I forget who, I think it was Levi, whatever his name is. He coined the term astral light, and he would see into the astral light, the kind of a remote viewing type deal, and he'd see where he was trying to go in that astral light. And then I think it was the Theosophists who had it more of a travel where you would leave your body and go travel around. And but this all goes back to older things like what we call journeying, which people with journeying, people tend to think of more of where you take some form of plant psychedelic type thing and go have an out-of-body experience that way. But again, it does not really need to be out of body. All of this usually is actually happening in the mind. In fact, even most what people think of as out-of-body experiences are actually happening through a lucid dream, or a process that basically creates a lucid dream experience. Which isn't to say that some people don't actually do full out-of-body experience. That does happen, but that is not necessarily the norm. And you shouldn't try to think you're not doing it because you're not having a full out-of-body experience. Our consciousness is much bigger than just our body. And basically, when you're doing this stuff, you're expanding your consciousness out, or at least becoming aware that your consciousness is already expanded out. And you're tapping into, there's just different ways of looking at it. You can think of it as you're tapping into this information field that surrounds everything, or you can imagine that you're already connected to everything, which is really more accurate. We're already connected. Everything is already one. So if everything is one, then there's nothing separating you from anywhere else, any other part of the universe. You are already everywhere. And so you don't need to go anywhere. You can just know it. And we do all of this in our mind. And we use our imagination. Our imagination is the threshold for meeting the spiritual. And I know this is really hard for a lot of people. They want things to be super real. That's like when they conjure a spirit, they want the spirit to appear in full physical manifestation in front of them. Or they want to hear the spirit with their ears. When more often than not, even doing a full evocation, you're still not, you might get some form of physical manifestation. The lights might flicker, the temperature might change. You might see some shadowy figure or something. But even then, you're still probably going to hear them in your head, and it's probably going to sound a lot like your own voice. And that's just the reality of most magic. And it's not like that there are certain rituals even that are significantly more powerful. There are some. And there's certain types of magic that tend to get more of that kind of physical response. But you don't need to go for that to get results. And you don't even need to go through all of that to be able to communicate, which is why pathworking is so cool, because it's a very easy, simple ritual. You don't need a lot of equipment or a big setting. You just need someplace quiet. And really, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't even need to be quiet. If you're, can really focus even in the middle of a lot of noise, and then you can do it anywhere. So all of pathworking is, it's like journeying, only someone else has already been there and has already made the journey, and then they've left signposts basically so that you can find your way there. Now I should also but just clarify, in the occult community, the phrase pathworking can mean many different things. Now, in a lot of Kabbalistic workings and stuff, pathworking can mean you're working on the paths on the tree of life that are between the Sephiroth. Those are paths, and if you do anything with those, and those are called pathworking, which is a different thing, although you technically can pathwork the paths. You'll also hear the phrase used when people might if there's rituals that build on each other. Like you do this ritual, and then you do this ritual, and then you do this ritual, which leads to this ritual, then that can be considered a pathworking as well. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about with pathworking is a form of journeying where someone has, again, like I said, made the trip beforehand, and they left kind of signposts for you. And so you just look at a piece of, they usually just frame it as like 3 or 4 descriptive images that you use your imagination, and you do you imagine the first scene, and then you imagine the next scene, and then the next and the next, however long the pathworking is. And then, you kind of hold that last scene, and then you call for the spirit's name, and then the spirit will appear. And that's really all it is. It's super easy. And of course, the first thing people like to say is, well, I can't visualize. Well, yes, there are some people that can't visualize. And I don't know how to communicate how to do this to them if they can't do it, if they just can't do it. Now, I think that most people can do it. I'm not trying to say that the people that can't do it don't exist. They definitely do. But the majority of people can do it. They just don't think they can, because they hear the word visualize and they build that up to be something that it's not. I'm not trying to say that you have to create a completely 3D perfect version of the setting. All you have to do is get a sense of it. And most of these things you can use them. Most of the images are fairly simple, straight things from nature. And maybe you don't have like a clear memory of any one of thing, but you have a couple and you can put them together. It's easy. So yeah, if one is just like a pine forest, well, you know how a pine forest looks. If nothing else, you've seen a picture of a pine forest, and you can just remember that picture of a pine forest. And then hopefully you can do a little bit better than just that. And then the more you do it, the more real it can become, and you can imagine yourself walking through, the pine trees within the pine forest, and you can feel the bark of the pine trees and feel the ground beneath your feet and stuff. And the more real that you can make it, the more immersive the experience can be. But again, you don't need to have an immersive experience to get results from this. All you just need is the vaguest picture of the pathworking, or of the image that it describes. And so as far as I know, this particular method was first popularized, at least, by Theodore Rose in his book Lucifer and the Hidden Demons. I remember when this first happened, I was so against it. I was like, oh, this is so lazy. It's already so easy. The Gallery of Magic and people have already made summoning these spirits so easy. Why do we need something even easier? This is just too easy. It's almost, this can't be real. Well, it is real, and it took me a while to come around to it, but eventually I tried it, and it was really powerful. Like, I had done, rituals before where I had talked to, and again, this was a demon book, so the only other one, there weren't a whole lot of, I hadn't done a whole lot of demon work at the time, so I think I'd really only used a couple of different methods. And those were fine. Like, I could sometimes, usually I could get a connection where I could talk to the spirit, but I never really got, where I could see them in my mind. This is all mental and in the imagination. I could hear them, but I couldn't really see them. It wasn't that kind of a ritual. And so to have that added visual element and then have that, it was very cool. And almost immediately I recognized the potential here is more than just you telling a spirit what you want it to do for you. That's just the beginning of this whole thing. The real power of this is that you're able to really communicate. Like, to do a more formal evocation usually takes a lot more energy. I remember doing several full evocations and just being drained afterwards. But with a pathworking, you don't really have that. And so that was good. And then again, just being able to talk and to have the demon, talk back. And that was just really an interesting thing. And after I did several rituals in a row, it was something special I was doing. And I was a real convert after that. It was a big deal. But I still, I was just using that one book and didn't think anything of it. And then, so what happened, and I was working with Raziel on a different project, and I was having I was trying to do a full evocation with Raziel on a regular basis. And each time, like I said, I was getting really tired, and it was just draining. And afterwards I had to go sit down and rest, and it's hard to get a lot of work done whenever you're that tired. And so finally I was just like, I really wish there was an easier way to get in touch with you. And then in my head I saw these images, a series of images, and I was like, wait, was that a pathworking? So I shut that ritual down, and then I did the pathworking. And it worked. And there was Raziel, and I recognized the feel of it, and that energy, that feel, that was definitely Raziel. It's the same that I just had by doing the full evocation. And so I contacted my friend, and I sent it to him, and I was like, hey, try this real quick and see if that works for you. And he was like, yeah, that worked. And so then I posted in our big group that we're in together. I was like, hey, people, try this and see what, if it works for you. And it did. And I was like, it worked for everybody. I mean, it's like, wow, this is really cool. I got a pathworking for Raziel. And one of Raziel's powers is that Raziel will connect you to other spirits and make the connection stronger, and so that you can see and hear them more clearly. And so like within just a couple of days, somebody, I think it might have been the next day, somebody posted they had a pathworking for Uriel that was in another book. And so they posted that, and I tried it, and it worked. It didn't seem to work as well, but it did work. And then it gave me that, and I remembered that power of Raziel, and I went to Raziel first, and then I went to Uriel using that pathworking, and it was like, night and day. All of a sudden, man, it was on. It was like, that connection was so much better. I was like, okay, this is it. This is the big key. And so shortly after that, that's when I was like, okay, so I can go to Raziel, and can I get other pathworkings? And sure enough, Raziel would give me pathworkings for other spirits. And so that's when I was able to write those first 2 books, just based on the pathworkings that I was getting from Raziel and sharing those with people. And I admit that, like, maybe my knowledge of the spirits that I'm, put in those books was not as I didn't have as much information then as I do now and experience, but that's just how it always is. We have to start somewhere. And those books still are very good as far as getting in touch with those spirits. And, I just recommend maybe having other books around to help you find even more powers and abilities and just more information about those spirits. But again, they weren't really focused about those spirits. They were mainly on the technique to get you in contact with those spirits. And the 72 Shem angels and archangels. And the second book was with the archangels and with the 42 angels. So there's a lot of really good stuff there in working with those angels. The 72 they're associated with the zodiac, and so they're kind of like stellar magic, that's star magic. And so they can sometimes take a little longer, but usually their effects are more longer lasting. And then archangel magic seems to be really quick and powerful and big, and it's just, to me, it's one of the most effective forms of magic there is. And then the 42 are amazing for inner work and self-transformation, and which is really where you need to start, because you usually have to do a lot of inner work before you can get the outer work to work well. And so between all those, you can get a lot done. They're really good. And then I have pathworkings in the Angels of Omnipotence book too, but we're going to talk about them in a different episode. So the way that a pathworking works is, like I said, you start off and you usually just want to get in someplace comfortable where no one's going to bother you. Kind of how you do, most magic, but you don't need to do a lot of pre-work or anything. I mean, you can if you want, and don't get me wrong, if you want to, you can make this as elaborate as you would like. You can always add incense and candles and circles and sigils and, all of whatever tools you need, and altars and offerings. By all means, if that's how you work, then that's how you work. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just giving you the main points that you have to do. And then you can try to work that into whatever your preferred method of working is. And the main things that you need to do are, be somewhere where you're going to, have a few minutes of uninterrupted time. And you'll look at the pathworking, and you'll look at that first line, and you'll imagine that as vividly as you can. And then once you have it, you can move on to the next. And then the next and the next, until you get to the final one. And when you get to that final image, you'll call the spirit. And you'll kind of hold that and let that be the setting that you're working in. But you don't even really have to do that. You can let that fade, and you can just, be in whatever situation you want at that point. If you have an astral temple that you would rather have the conversation in or something, you can then put that there if you wanted to. Or whatever, if you want just blank, to talk in blank whiteness or just all black, whatever works for you. But you call the spirit, and then you can talk to them. But what usually the best way, if you're trying to get results, you would call them, and then you would feel the need for whatever it is or feel that desire or or whatever emotion that you typically like a more of a negative emotion for what you want. be it, your need or your desire or your anger. But you find that emotion. You don't have to get real deep into it. You just need to kind of get a taste of it. And then make your request. And you make your request in that short, brief statement, like, you would do for most rituals. And then after that, then you can talk to the spirit normally and just explain what it is you want, need, the circumstances, whatever extenuating circumstances might be going on. And then, if they have any questions, then you can listen to their questions and then answer them. And then when it's done, you simply thank them and you return to the very first image, and then you close the ritual. And that's really it. And then what makes it more effective is adding Raziel at the beginning. And Raziel will kind of, what I say is, turn up the volume. It's going to make the connection quicker, faster, louder, more vivid, usually in different ways. It works differently for everybody. And the most common question that I've ever been asked is, do you have to work with Raziel? No, you don't have to. You can skip that part if you don't want to. If you don't want the volume turned up, then that's fine. Don't do it. It will absolutely work without. So, and then, and this is just for my work. As far as like Theodore Rose's, he has you go to Lucifer first. And there's a whole hierarchy set up in that book. I would just recommend following the instructions of that book. I'm not going to try to tell you what you can and can't do there. That's someone else's work. So that's really all it is. And then I've found that when you work in the astral like that, it can be very, very helpful to make something real out of it. And so after you've completed the pathworking, you might want to jot it. Like usually you just make a sigil or something that represents what you've just asked for. But you don't even have to do that. You can just write it in your journal, or if you're really creative, you can, then try to create a picture out of what you just saw, or write a poem or a song about it, or a interpretive dance. Just make something real out of it. What you're trying to do is you're bringing something from the realm of the spirit and the mind, and you're bringing it into the physical realm. And so that's the final thing that you tend to want to do after a pathworking. It's kind of optional, but I think that it will help you get more results. But again, it's your ritual. You can do it however you want. But, to me, again, the main advantage that we have with pathworking over other rituals is the ability to sit there and communicate and to talk with each other and to learn from these spirits. These are vast cosmic forces who've been around since before humanity. They have so much that they can teach us and we can learn from. And so, why not take advantage of that? Why not go and just, work with one every day? Just go through the 72 one a day and see what they have they can teach you. Forget about necessarily what they can give you. What can they teach you? What knowledge do they have? Like, seriously, this is something that I just simply am baffled by the way other magicians sometimes think of spirits. And it's like, it's like they treat it like it's a computer program. If you type in the right commands, then it's going to punch out what you want. And it's like, that's not completely wrong, but they're also really smart and they have a lot of wisdom and they can teach us things. And they're usually not very open about like the big questions of the universe, but sometimes they are, as my interviews have shown. But they can definitely help you in your life and figuring out who you are and where you fit into things and what you need to be doing, and help you to figure the next step out. It's amazing what you can get just from taking that extra time to talk to them. Just talk and ask a question, and just ask them, what can you teach me? What information do you have that would help me, with my life as it is right now, and make that next step? And you'll be amazed what will happen. When I wrote that first book, I was making requests with each angel that I contacted, and I was talking to them and stuff. And like, I'm still receiving the benefits from all of those rituals that I did back in, what was that, 2019. So yeah, there's so much that we can learn from these guys, and it would be such a waste to not take advantage of that. I mean, even Raziel, just working with Raziel alone has basically launched my entire career as a professional magician. From the pathworkings, to the attunements, to everything. And just finding that one spirit that's going to be the key that unlocks everything for you is all you've got to do. And for me, that was Raziel, and who knows who it's going to be for you. But this is a quick and easy way to find out, and you just go through the thing, and man, you're going to find somebody that's just like, it's they're probably going to have you in tears by the end of it. It's going to be amazing. So yeah, I highly just recommend just work your way through those books. So I can't really think of too many other questions that people have had about pathworking. The most common question I get is, do I have to work with Raziel? Now, I do have pathworkings for the 72 demons and other demons and spirits on my Patreon. And, so people asked, well, do you still work with Raziel for a demon? It's like, yes, of course. You can still work with Raziel with any spirit. It's entirely up to you. And, there's some other options for guides, anyway, yeah, there's some, other spirit, anything that can act as like a psychopomp or a guide can kind of cover the same ground as Raziel. They just might not be as user friendly, for lack of a better word, but they might be for you, and that's the thing. And even a spirit who might not even have that listed as a particular power, but you resonate really well with, especially if they're like your patron in some way, then you can work with them and to help to guide you to the different spirits and stuff. You don't feel like you have to do things exactly the way I do. And this is, again, I keep coming back to this. You got to take even in my stuff, but anyone's stuff, you got to take the parts that sound good to you and then work it into your system and how it works for you. This is your magic. It's your ritual. You've got to personalize it. And if you come and you ask me, hey, is it okay to do this? Yeah, it's fine. But if you ask me, like, sometimes people also ask me, like, will this work better? Well, it's like, as far as I'm concerned, the way I wrote it is the best way. But that's the best way for me. And so that's all I'm ever going to be able to tell you is what's the best for me. I don't know what the best way for you is. So you need to figure that out for yourself. And that requires some experimentation. It requires a little bit of courage to, go off the written text a little bit. And if you make that step, you're going to be so much happier. You really will. Okay, so I guess one of the other questions I get is, am I going to make more pathworkings? And yeah, I'm sure I will. I keep trying to make this spirit catalog work, and it just keeps not working the way I want it to. I may just have to dump the idea of keeping it as a patron only thing and just open it up to everyone, because that's the part that's making it so hard, is making it where only certain people can get to it. And if you're like, what are you talking about? So I had the idea of a spirit catalog, kind of like a wiki that connects spirits, and people could add in what spirits that they wanted pathworkings for, and then if they did a good article about that spirit, that can contain like powers and correspondences and stuff, then I would go in and I would give a pathworking for whatever spirit they added. And I've tried a couple of different versions, trying to keep it where only the patrons could get to it, and it's really not working well, and I don't know what to do with it. We'll figure it out at some point. Anyway, yeah, I would rather it just be like a wiki that everyone could just work on, and I didn't have to like monitor every little thing that happened. It's just a nightmare. So anyway, that's kind of what I would like to do with the Pathworkings, is kind of have a place that people can go and do that, rather than just making book after book after book, writing the same thing, because this is how Pathworkings work. It gets really tiresome, but then after, maybe if we do have a bunch on the path on the site, then maybe I would take that and make a book. I don't know. Well, right now my brain is actually somewhere else. Pathworkings are not my main concern, and which isn't to say that I will never return to it, just that that's not my main thing right now. There's some other stuff going on. I don't know why I'm being coy. Really what I'm working on right now is building basically an Enochian temple. I'm building the table and hand painting it. I'm gonna make the wax sigillum myself, and so yeah, I've got all the supplies, and I'm starting to work on that now. So that's kind of where my brain is at the moment right now, is working on that. And I do have an idea. I just had an idea for a book that's just kind of like, it's just kind of suddenly taking over all of my headspace, which is what happens. And then everything I thought I wanted to work on suddenly gets shot down. And I know it's really frustrating for people who are waiting for particular stuff for me, but we'll get there. We'll get to everything. We'll see. This particular book is a long-term project. It's not anything I can just, crank out quick. So, but yeah, right now I'm building the Enochian temple, and I'll start posting pictures or something somewhere. I need to start doing more on my social media anyway. But yeah, once I start getting pieces finished, I'll start, posting about it. It'll be fun. So that's my main thing. And so then, of course, the next question people usually have is, are we going to get Pathworkings for Enochian? I've done it, and it's kind of worked, but it didn't work as well. And I think that there needs to be more for the Enochian system. And I feel like there's almost needs to be an understanding of that universe. The way that particular system describes the universe is really kind of what I mean. So, and then of course there's the attunements and how that would work. I don't have a complete idea of how I can make a simplified Enochian system that fits into the same pattern as that I've done with the pathworking books, or even the attunements. It seems like it needs a little bit more. That language seems to be so important to the system, but which isn't to say that it isn't going to happen, just that I'm still working on that. But getting the temple put together is going to be the first step, because I want to get it done. I'm going to do everything right from the beginning. From my end, I'm going to make sure, I've got the table, and I've even got the red silk rug. I've got the tablecloth that flashes red and green. It's got the tassels. I mean, we're getting everything. The only thing I haven't really got yet is, I still need to put it all together. I don't use like a crystal ball, so I don't really have a show stone, but I tend to use my wife for that instead, or myself. So that's the one thing I don't have, I think. And I don't have like the 12 banners, but I don't really know how important those are. I've got the tablets all worked out and all that. So anyway, there's a lot of work to that. The ring and the lamen, the table. But yeah, we'll get it all. And once I have all that, then I can start working on the attunements and pathworkings and see if I can put a system together that is more user friendly for, a beginner to any intermediate, instead of having to, go and study for. Because I've been working on this stuff for years, trying to wrap my head around this system so that I could try to simplify it. And we'll see. I'm sure that there's going to be a version of it that comes out of this. I mean, the angels have pretty much already told me so in working with them, and it's even come up in some of the interviews. So it'll happen. I'm just not sure what it's going to look like. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on, and what's kind of eating up my mind space right now. But so yeah, I'll keep everyone updated on all of those things. And I've got some new, I've just announced in the Facebook group that I'm going to start offering some new services soon. We're going to have custom initiations again, where you can get an attunement to the spirit of your choice. I'm going to start making custom sigils for people for whatever your request, except for love, obsession, and attack. And I'll be doing custom servitors, and I'll probably be rolling those out like one at a time, because I'm sure whenever I bring one out, a whole bunch of people are going to want it at first, and then it'll kind of taper off, and then maybe I can bring the next thing out. That way I don't completely overwhelm myself. So keep an eye out for those. And then, and at some point we might start offering just, full out ritual services, but that's probably much further down the line. But yeah, so got all kinds of stuff coming. It's a really exciting time, and it's going to be a good year. I'm having fun. So yeah, come back here hopefully next Friday, and we'll have another episode, and I will see you then. Bye bye.